We are here at the Molino Gardens in Chefchaouen, which has become our home away from home for those of us staying in Oujda, Morocco. We love Chefchaouen, but we love this hotel too. And we want to thank Austin, the owner, and Bilal, the manager, for accommodating us and doing lots of running around for us, helping us to make this possible. So, Brian, I know you have all the details, and we will include some photographs of this gorgeous, gorgeous place. There's a beautiful story behind this hotel too.
Perfect.
Welcome to Morocco. It is prayer time.
Let's let the prayer do its thing.
That is too fucking funny. I'm sorry.
Give me 1 second.
That was short, is that it?
Yep.
That's it.
Nope.
Oh, this is too good.
Too funny for fucking words. I'm sorry.
It's the bit of the outtakes, is it?
Yeah, this. You know, we should actually post the outtakes as well, just for shits and giggles.
You could do this for the next 2 hours.
Well, 3 o'clock in the morning, it went on for about 15-20 minutes.
First, Sacha sets the
beautiful.
intent about the
Actually,
message.
I lived in Marrakesh for a while, and in Egypt as well for a couple of years, and I used to wake up to the muezzin. I love it.
Yeah, you get used to it after a while. Just not that convenient in the middle of a radio show.
Right.
Just remember, words create, guys.
I can transcribe this for you. I can tell you what he's saying. He's saying, God be praised, it's a bank holiday.
Oh wow.
It's a really long one too. What? They're not usually this long at this time of day.
It's a special one for all of us.
Ah, yes. Brian, do you want to take 2 seconds? Or Jorge, can you grab that bottle of water, please, love? It's on the table.
I think that's it.
This one right here.
That was precious.
I'm sorry.
That was absolutely precious.
Okay, guys.
Take 3.
Well, three's a charm. Yeah.
So should I just go straight into
Go
the Molino
straight
Gardens
into
thing? If anybody is interested in looking into where we are, Chefchaouen, spelled Chefchaoun, lot of vowels, is also called the Blue City. And it's literally one of the most beautiful places in Morocco that I've seen so far. The hotel, again, is called Molino Garden. And they have a website that's getting ready to go live in the next few days, which is just Molino, M-O-L-I-N-O, garden.com. And if anybody is interested in making a reservation here or coming by, they have an active email, which is just info@molinogarden.com. And one of the owners, Austin, is here and has hosted us. So live, thank you once again, Austin. And I think that's
Bilal.
about and Bilal, the manager, for assisting with us and scrambling to get everything we needed for the live radio broadcast that didn't work.
For putting up with our circus this morning.
Yeah. So thank you, Austin. Thank you, Hotel Molino. We'll be putting some nice video and photos in the YouTube video before it goes out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Sacha, we have via Skype from London.
Couldn't be happier than to be with you, Lisa, and to meet my beloved Heather properly, and Dee, and my brother Brian. Very happy indeed.
Thank you, Sacha.
Great
It's nice
to meet
to
you.
Oh, that's what happens when we talk over each other. Okay. It is nice to finally get you, Sacha, and Heather in the same room, as virtual as it is. You know, the 5 of us have all been very dedicated to educating, changing, and waking up not only ourselves but as many people as we can touch. And we've all chosen different, to some extent, different avenues for that. And yet we're at a time where everyone seems to be converging, at least in my perspective. We're coming to the same place on so many levels. And I think we're all starting to see a unified vision. And I know the work that Heather's done is something you're very aware of and has played some part in how New Earth Nation has looked at the legal side of how we move forward. So can you tell me a little bit about what the paperwork that was done by the One People's Public Trust did for you personally, and how it may have influenced the legal framework that you were moving
Sure. Well, I'm the least qualified person on this call to be speaking to matters of law. I am, as a layman, interested in it. I find law in and of itself repugnant to the human soul and to human dignity, in much the same way that I find words on paper repugnant to the soul and to human dignity. We ought not to be contracting with one another in any way, shape or form in our ultimate expression. But insofar as we are trapped in a temporal field of expression which is by and large hidden from itself most of the time, we feel the need to look over our shoulder and sleep with one eye open, and thereby not trust one another with open heart and open mind. And so in that respect, we're trapped in that space. And to that end, the work that the OPPT did with the UCC filings was nothing short of staggering and paradigm shifting. And I hear a lot of people howling with derision at that kind of claim. I understand the fabric of skepticism and cynicism. Incidentally, I find that even more repugnant to the human soul and dignity at a time like this, when pioneers are trying with every fiber of their being to peer beyond the Hermes veil on behalf of the great unwashed, and to be stoned almost to death for doing so. It reflects back on the great unwashed in an unprecedented way. But I digress. The OPPT UCC filings effectively opened the energetic corridor. So let's be clear about this. We are more concerned with the energetics, with the subtle plane, with the torsion, fractal, scalar, energetic spectrum than we are with the temporal realm of expression, which, as I just said, is full of shit most of the time. So in that respect, we owe that action, that perfect action, that perfect event, we all owe it. It is in some sense, in law terms, the atom seed of the bifurcation, which will now bring about right and proper self-determination and governance and so on. So we took that energetic premise as the atom seed. What we are hoping to do and intending to do, and certainly are in the process of doing, is establishing what we are referring to as the International Tribunal for Natural Justice. And to some great extent, the UCC filings are embroidered into the fabric of the first step that we take in engendering that International Tribunal for Natural Justice. But the tribunal in and of itself is being composed of law experts and people who can speak to the subtleties of law. And so the very first thing we're going to do with that tribunal, and I hope and expect with your blessing and with your involvement, will be to have the world, through that tribunal, look in on the UCC filings and then make a wholesome determination about the, what's that word, legitimacy of the UCC filings. Well, we all know the legitimacy. We all know absolutely what law means and what lawful means and what legitimacy means. But apparently, the sentinels of law, the judiciaries and legislatures and parliaments and systems that prevail all across the world in 250 odd nation states, corporate nation states, have long forgotten what law means, what legal means, what lawfulness means. So we thank the OPPT, we thank the UCC filings, we thank Heather, we thank the whole crew.
Thank you, Sacha. Lovely.
Lovely.
I've been following Sacha's work Hold on, we have
Sorry,
feedback
we're
here.
getting.
Maybe just turn your voice down there.
Okay. I've been following Sacha's work and many others that are compartmentalized, that Sacha is centralized at this point. And a lot of them have contacted me throughout the period that at least that I've been public, and now I've watched them. I've stayed very observant at the centralization that you've done, Sacha, and it's beautiful. And it is time to go forward, and I feel the same way about law as you've stated. You have a more rock star version of stating it, which is really cool. So it inherently in its tones moves it to and shifts it to the energetics, which is where it always has been. Law was just a container, and it was a nice management tool when it was useful for us to experience not being who we really be, so we could break through, find ourselves, and have that joy. I'm really excited to look even deeper and to speak with you on looking at what tools you need help refinement. I never want it to go back the way it was. I never want to experience that again. And I hear that being resounded through action, through words, and through thought of every being, not just on this planet, but in the universe. So here we go. Open door. I'm going to follow your lead, Sacha, as far as this conversation goes, and let's really get into the heart of it.
That's unfortunate because I was planning to follow your lead. And
Oh, hold on, Sacha,
Hold
we
on,
can't hear
Sasha.
you.
let's work it out together. Brian and Lisa can certainly flank, and Dee, I know, has got some very profound things to say. Well, look, I mean, what do we want to explore? Where do we want to explore where do we take consciousness and sovereignty now? In the last year, I've been speaking almost expressly to three items. And the first is time and the need for us to look at what that represents, not just in the gestalt, but actually in the fabric of the entire history of our galaxy, of our solar system, of whatever it is that brought about our genesis. And we need to stop identifying with time as being something which prevails and drives us. Because it really is that is the signature of the matrix, is time, is this notion that we come from there and we're going to there. And so long as we are thinking in that mindset, we are utterly trapped on that linear plane. And the whole point of Bodhisattva, the whole point of Christos, the whole point of human aspiration, spiritual aspiration, is seeking where that lateral plane is intersected by the transcendent, the vertical. How do we extricate ourselves from time? That's for me a very important thing that we need to look at in every way. And because time is the same as the second item, which is money. Money is the way in which we begin to trade illusions with one another, fundamentally. Because that's all humans seem to be obsessed with, is buying and selling each other's bullshit. Or that's what the matrix determines that we should be doing. We should be squabbling amongst one another. We should be bargaining and bartering and pushing each other out the way. So we are fundamentally entrained into a parasitic, vampiric, and cannibalistic meme, a pattern of imperfection that prevails all over the earth within this atmosphere, this sphere of forgetfulness. And time and money, understanding what they are, they equate, of course, to the third unit, which is fear. Because time is about fear, and money is all about fear, and fear is all about fear. And fear, arguably, is the primary tone that has been that we've been subjected to, or subjugated to, historically speaking. So my obsession, not to beat this particular donkey to death, but my obsession has been with helping my brothers and sisters and myself to understand these first stepping stones, time, money, and fear, and how I, Sacha, forget everyone else on the planet, how I have been entrained, dream-spelled, subjugated, into these notions that is the foundation stones of reality. Well, no, they aren't the foundation stones of reality, nor should they be. What we need to do is enter with this 0 point, this subspace vacuum that exists in the center of each of our essence, the id. This is the monad, and this is where we, each of us, need to surrender ourselves to ourselves within that space, because only in that subspace quanta are we truly connected telepathically through the psionic faculties. Are we absolutely connected to one another? We are there connected to the, what do they call it, the Druid telephone network. And we're able to connect with one another, really connect, without the trading, the bartering, the lies, the deceptions, all of that stuff which obfuscates and separates ourselves from our humanity. So, as I said, I probably have beaten that donkey to death roundabout now, but time, money, and fear are the things that I'm still obsessed with us collectively understanding as part of that exit stratagem.
Okay, so if we keep this to a very personal level, right? Sacha and Heather, for this moment. The experiences all come from each vibration, okay? You're a particular vibration, a frequency, you're unique, one of a kind, so am I. So is every single embodiment in the universe. Fear is the tone, okay? Money and time are just devices in order to implement that fear. So it's not that time and money generates the fear. You've got the fear, and then you have the tools to be able to implement it and make sure it always goes on. Time is beautiful. You know, time can be beautiful. It hasn't been in the way that it's been implemented, but it is beautiful to be able to sit here and elongate this moment and not have it fly by and be able to do another moment. So I get the way time has been used. I don't operate on a time continuum. I have to have lots of help to be able to make sure that I get kids to school or sit down at the right time for a conversation. But at the same time, it can be a great tool. It just depends on how you want to look at it and then how you choose to implement it, right? I love all the tools that we used in the past to be able to come to this moment now. It is a glorious moment, and it's going to be whatever we make it. So at this point, currencies and all of that, I know there's a lot of hubbub around monetary system, the reevaluations. I'm just going to follow your lead here, Sacha. Since you opened the door, let's associate. I just hit the time matter, okay, the time issue in a general concept, and then as far as money, you have these reevaluations, and I've listened to and I followed along with almost everyone that's gone out, whether it be Swiss Indo from way back when. You have now, please forgive me if I get this wrong, the ambassador for the Dragon family. You've got all the different financial gurus and aspects that run or had run in the past the financial system, and everyone's got their own agendas. What I've always known and what I've always experienced is that the absolute plan maneuvers those agendas, but for something beautiful. Everyone has done hard work, every single one, and people can perceive them as bad or good, resonating or not, illuminating or not, but yet everyone was very valuable in getting us to this moment, okay? So what I'm looking at is I so want to join hands with every single embodiment as we pull this together. A lot of people have said they don't know how to be and do, right? They're used to the time management, they're used to the money management, and there's some others that are sub-management tools, okay?
Like law.
Law is done. You can hear me now and you can experience it later, but that's what it is. It is done. You have natural laws, okay? Those don't need to be spoken, they don't need to be written. They're experienced every moment, whether people are conscious of them or not. And it will not change that fact, whether someone negates it or not, okay? As far as the money issue, I know that the three lines have been government, financial, and judicial, okay? Legislative falls within the government, okay? I'm not going to micromanage this at all. But those are basically the three topics. And I've looked at what you guys have done with New Earth Nation, and you know, legal is very different than lawful. All right, lawful is something that just is, and you can't change it. You can experience it, and you can choose how you want to experience it, but it is still there. Legal is where you have something that's not lawful, and you have to have a license to make it legal.
Hmm.
That's all that is. So I'm looking at whatever tools are out there, all this beautiful energy that everyone has put in, especially I'm here to focus on Sacha and what they've put together and the centralizations. Forgive me because I'm terrible at pronouncing Hawaiian names, but the man that goes by the title of King of Hawaii has been contacting me for quite some time. I've watched them centralize, working within and drawing together. And so far, the nexus point has been where you're sitting, Sacha. Let's use the energies. Let's go in. I want to help no matter what we do, because being and doing has been very difficult for people. They get upset at me, and I'm going to only speak from my experience, okay? Not from others, but from my own experience, is they get mad at me because I don't tell them how to be and do. And I'm not here to define anything. I'm just here to be myself, okay? But I am there to also make sure that any structures or any kind of tools that are used aren't structured in such a way that people are limited. And that's just my own personal, okay? That's what I saw, that's what I go for, and yet at the same time, there's all these beautiful tools, little tweaks, little shifts, and if we really listen to each other, you'll find when someone feels limited. And at that point, you can tweak it, you can shift it. No harm done, just go in and make another choice, do something else. But there are people that are really having a hard time imagining how to be and do. And that's why these structures can be so great. They can help, they can assist. It's like training wheels on a bike, okay? You don't use them forever, but you use them just for the time that you need to. You know, and there's that time word again.
This
Anything in
time,
this window
Heather.
is probably a bad idea.
Hello,
Oh, there's Sacha.
There we go. Sasha's back.
we're back.
Okay,
I don't think with video, but we're working
Hello.
on it.
let's see. Call recorder.
We're back.
Here you go. Here you go, Lisa. I don't know what.
Can you come look at the message on the screen, please?
No, that's okay. Yeah. Okay. No, it's fine.
Okay.
I can't see. Okay, there's us. Where's Sacha?
Sacha,
I'm here.
you got your camera on?
I've got my camera on, yes.
It's not.
Can you turn
Hang
it off?
on, hang on. That should come on now.
There we are.
Gotcha. There you are. Okay.
Okay, so to get back to it, that's just where my personal feet are standing on the ground at this moment, is to help and assist in whichever way I can for everything to move forward. The reevaluations, the monetary system the way it is, it's not going to move forward. And there's one simple little thing, and it's because you have such tones as debt forgiveness. You know, the only thing to forgive is that the illusion debt ever existed was pushed forth. You know, and, and it's just that simple to say, it doesn't exist, so here's what we're going to do, and there's ways to do this. I'm here to help so that we can move those things forward. Currencies, there's nothing wrong with the currency. It is just a form of storage for everyone's energy. You only use a fraction of it when you're going forward. You can store it. It doesn't matter, but it has to be done in the correct way, in a way that doesn't represent what is. It is what is. Okay, it's an extension of yourself. It's an extension of your body, and you're going to use it responsibly, and you're going to honor and respect others who want to use it. So there is ways to do this. I'm here to help. I'm here to actually have fun and to do with everyone else. So that's the stance on the money thing. The time thing, Sacha, I really don't know as far as me operating in a time continuum, but I have these beautiful embodiments that are assisting me to do that. So it's a multi-dimensional world at this point and universe, and that's what's coming through. So there's going to be some shifts here. There's going to be shifts of experience.
Well, interestingly enough, the way that you speak about time tells me that you are not entrained in time, that you are, in point of fact, time bending. And that, by definition, is when one has escaped from the idea of time, slowing it down and just not adhering to it. That, to my mind, makes a great deal of sense. I mean, at the collective level, when we reach a threshold and sufficient numbers of human beings are also bending time. I mean, let's face it, there are 7.4 odd billion souls on sentient human souls on Earth, and they are variously all living different timelines. So time is arguably the greatest myth of all. But I like the way you speak about it, because you don't pay it much attention, and I think that's the point. Whereas most people they have wristwatches strapped to their bodies, and the clock tick-tocking all the time. I mean, if you just think about the fact that we have hundreds of millions of devices, digitized devices, whether it's iPads or iPhones or computer screens all around the world, and all of them are digitized with these binary codes, and they're all paying homage to this myth of time. They're all tick-tocking, and that has an effect on the subconscious and the collective unconscious as well. Again, it's just keeping us entrained into ultimately false and very un-universal means.
Agreed.
But I love the way you spoke about it.
Well, I'm really excited for where this goes. The energy is what I'm focused on. Very passionate, just propelling it forward. We are the bridge. Every sentient being in this universe is the bridge. Okay? You don't have to wait for someone to build it, just be it. So whatever I can assist with, I'm really excited about this moment now. So I'm going to let you lead this further, and Danny and Brian and Lisa, and I'll just hop in where you guys need me.
Let me ask you something, just on the law side of things, if I may. I mean, when we consider that we have divine law and natural law, cognitive law, sovereign law, administrative law, military law, security law, all of these different forms, is there any sense in looking to charter a kind of definitive expression of law in its most simplest terms, and setting that about and beginning to articulate an international, or let's say a supranational, extraterritorial framework for law? Would it make sense to work on creating some kind of a ultimate synthesis of law?
Yeah, there's three components to how this moves forward to end up exactly where we actually already are and always have been. Okay, is number one, self-responsibility, self-governance, and compassion. Okay, so for those that are self-governing, self-responsibility, I understand I create everything I experience. Okay, whether it's perceived as good or bad by me in the moment or by anybody else, I realize I create it. So I also have the opportunity to go in, and if there's something I don't like what I'm experiencing, or maybe someone else doesn't, and I can consider that I'm affecting that person, then I can go in and make another choice. Okay, that's what I mean by self-responsibility and self-governance. I'm the only one that can control what I am doing, despite what some have tried. Okay, I am the only one, and I answer for it. At the same time, I realize that perhaps there are people who, and other beings, because we're not just talking about planetary here, you're talking about universal, that do not see that they're responsible for and creating what they're experiencing. At that point, that's where compassion comes in. Those are your biggest components right there. Now, as far as getting there, like I said, there are those that really are struggling with how to be and how to do. Okay, so as far as looking at how to assist everyone in seeing, you are self-responsible. You are the one, number one, that's creating it all. And all the former systems tell you otherwise. Okay, that's why it's so important at this point to really just be compassionate as everyone sits there and goes, I'm actually creating this. And that is such an empowering moment, that when they realize, if they're in the heat of something and they're experiencing something they don't like, it is so empowering for them to go, I created that. Because they can instantly make another choice and create something magical and fantastical and beautiful, where everyone just feels the energy pouring out. And it actually is an over-unity device. Everyone's so excited about these over-unity devices. I can tell you that every sentient being, every being in the universe is an over-unity device. Okay, you're a transmitter, you're a receiver, you are a vehicle. I can only be responsible for the vehicle I am, Absolutely. Nobody else has that responsibility. But if I'm not being responsible about something, the compassion of someone saying, Heather, this is what you're doing, this is what's going on, this is what I'm experiencing, and then us looking at it and going from there. Now, this is a very minuscule, I'm going to go micro to the macro, because right now you have a collapse of the micro and the macro, and it's all just what is, okay? But there is, and that's why I would like to, I've looked at what you've put up, Sacha, for what your team has put up in the legal section of New Earth Nation, assisting everyone to go forward so that it's a template that doesn't limit, but it is a structure of support, right? There are ways to do this, and there's you got to start somewhere, so there is a great foundation there. A lot of the stuff that was in the former systems is out. There's still stuff in there that, as long as people can move forward and they never feel limited, okay? And they're operating in self-responsibility and self-governance, but at the same time, there's compassion amongst every being as that other being is going through their journey. And it's a multitude. It's complex, but the complexity is in the simplicity. It is so simple, and that's what I want to sit down with you and with the others to go through and say, where's this support structure that everyone can go forward in, and at the same time not be limited by.
Good, beautiful. And the sovereignty thing, you keep rounding back on that point, and I hope you continue to do it till the end of time. Because
hold on a second, there's a call going.
I don't know what's going on.
Please hold on to that thought. I want to hear that thought.
Yeah.
It might be just a quick one.
I think it's just...
No.
Today is not Friday.
Didn't we just do this?
Right? But that's what I'm saying. Today is not Friday. Is it a holy day today that we've forgotten? See, I'm
Every
sorry,
day's a
but
holiday
this
here.
I know, but you have to wonder, because this is not normal. This call is not normal. This is like the Friday call. You talk about us not working on a time continuum. This is the perfect example. Don't even know what day of the week it is.
I think it's Tuesday. Collective imagination. Always on Tuesdays. Now we have our shows to keep us on track of dates again.
Yeah, we know when Monday and Tuesday, isn't it?
You don't pick
Saturday's market day.
You don't pick noon to 2 ever. Those are always the prayer is noon to 2. Somewhere in there, depends on what month.
Well, that's funny because 1 a.m. was the only one that was.
I'm not seeing you folks. Not that it matters at my end, but I'm not seeing any of you.
Our camera's on.
Our camera's on.
It is. Could you knock it off and then put it on again? It might just reboot. Oh, thank you. Great. Come back.
Heather, you move in just a little bit.
Great. Can I pick up?
Yep.
Okay, go.
Yeah, I was just saying that I love the fact that you keep, Heather, you keep coming back and rounding in on sovereignty and saying this is my gig, it's my thing, it's my perspective, I'm responsible for the all, and we couldn't agree more. I mean, this is absolutely the position, that the space that we're holding. Again, I refer to this as 0 point, and when we are able to relax these software downloads of the Cartesian worldview, the entropic universe, the idea that we're running out of stuff, and that we should therefore be very, very afraid. And in that space of fear, we really ought to look to Daddy to save us from this diabolical state. And Daddy comes invariably, Daddy presents himself in a bishop's frock or a Jesuit gown. And this is the problem, is that the intercessory principle, which is the diabolical patriarch, coming in as a feminized character, very much like that ghastly witch that fed poisonous apples to children in the woods. I mean, that's really where we're at. And people, our brothers and sisters, billions of them, hundreds of millions of them around the world, are just symbiotically born, yanked out of the womb, slapped across the arse, have the umbilical cut with stainless steel, and the placenta hurled into a kidney dish, whereupon they're asked to leave the hospital and are thereby presumed missing at sea and a dead soul, effectively. And there the draconian Babylonian spell really begins. And so all of us indentured into slavery, really before we've even learned to squeak. And that is also hardwired into this entropic notion that we come from pain, we're invariably going to end up dying in pain. That is a fucked up premise to bring babies into the world. I mean, that is fundamentally where we're at. So the business of removing oneself or repairing oneself from that linear format and going, you know what, I'm going to do what Heather just said. I'm going to go right back to center and be in this space, and I'm accountable absolutely for all that manifests in my field of expression, all, without exception. There is nothing that will ever occur to me as a soul that is not by permission or by covenant. Arguably, there is soul compacts and soul covenants that also engineer situations and events for us, which we then find ourselves go, that's not a cool piece of karmic load to carry, but I trust that my higher knowing, my oversoul, engineered this situation absolutely, explicitly for me in this space. So all of that speaks to the same thing that you keep rounding back in, which is sovereignty, sovereignty, sovereignty. And sovereignty in its truest expression is consciousness in action. And consciousness in action is, by definition, sovereign expression. And so long as we are all of us, doesn't matter if there's 7.5 billion or 70 billion, as long as all of us are operating from that quanta, from that 0 point, then everything that emerges through the collective will be a pattern of perfection. It will naturally and necessarily emerge as the pattern of perfection. But you know, you talk about entropy, we talk about entropy and we talk about neg entropy. And it's important for us as an individual, a sovereign individual, to learn to get to grips with this. Am I, as a living man or a living woman, am I participating in an entropic paradigm by virtue of the words that come out of my mouth, the actions that issue from my being? Am I participating in an entropic, life-depleting paradigm? I.e., am I cannibalizing off my brothers and sisters in order to fulfill my egoic perspective, or to try and give myself a kind of wave, a spiritual wave to surf upon, or however we want to spin this? I need to really identify as a sovereign being. Am I participating in entropy, or am I participating in neg-entropy? And neg-entropy here, the negative aspect of entropy, or the obverse of entropy, really speaks to life affirmation. So whatever it is that I'm doing or being or saying in this world, am I giving freely? Am I participating in the dance of creation, in noble expression? Is that, because that is by definition life affirming, that's neg-entropic. And this is the bifurcation that we find ourselves at. And even, as Brian well knows, the thread that was opened up, just to invite questions for you and for me, just that thread alone invited some real creepy, crawly aspect, really negative, nasty. It tried to anchor this noble undertaking into a real shitty space, and almost succeeded in different ways. It's interesting when we look at that. It takes one imperfect action in a beautiful space to dim the light. And conversely, it takes one pure action, one right action to shake the devil off our back. And the story I often refer to is whether you agreed with the Ceausescu regime or not in the greater scheme of things. If you look at the Romanian Revolution, and you look at that fine day when there were 60,000 people hemmed in on that square, all having to salute and clap at their Führer when he was giving his speech. And it all came down to one action, which was a woman, purportedly, beneath the balcony, who, when the police were hemming the crowd in and there was this eruption about to take place, and the woman, an old woman, just put her arms around the security guard or the military guy and gave him a hug. And the guys next to him put down their weapons, put down their shields, and like a dominoes. And within hours, the people had then kicked the doors in of the presidential palace, and within 3 days, the revolution took place, and that particular unique tyranny was over.
But that was predicated on one right action issuing from that old woman, in not hitting someone with a broomstick, but simply putting down the broomstick and putting her arms around the guy behind the black helmet. So again, where do we, every moment of every day, where do we place our energies? Are we participating in entropy or negentropy?
Can I jump in real quick? Sacha, I'm glad that you mentioned the saviorship model. You know, we've done a lot of talking about this concept of having a saviorship model, and that being one of the leading elements into the programming that we've all been led to believe. Look outside yourself for a savior, whether it's the religions that we've been indoctrinated to believe in, or whether it be governments or politics, or whether it be the elders in our community or our teachers in our schools. You know, to look outside yourself for answers, and it's got this this pattern to it. You know, it's such an honor to be on this call. We've been so excited about it for the last 2 weeks since we started to put it together, because, you know, I for one, I admire the work that you've done, and I've grown to love you and the being that you are and the messages that you put out, and Heather being a huge inspiration on the work that I've done and the direction that my journey has taken me as a result to linking up with her. But the work that you and people like Heather do, and even myself to a smaller level, it comes with this huge element of being put under a microscope, to where the perception from many is that this New Earth Nation, Sacha Stone, Heather Ann, Tucci Jarraf, Brian Kelly, and Lisa Harrison, they have all the answers, and they are now the new potential savior. So I'm going to look at what they're doing and what they're saying as a guide for how I could step into this sovereignty. And on the flip side, they're saying, you know, this is a new form of hierarchy. This is being labeled as the New Earth Nation. I'm sure, you know, we saw a lot of it on that thread that we put out. You know, the New Earth Nation is this new form of hierarchy, and how could they have gotten everything that they did done with all this funding and all this support? And you take this criticism left and right. I'm just curious, because it's such a common theme that comes up. If you want to address that, just so people can hear it directly from you, and you have an opportunity to share in that regard, because it seems that around every corner you get these false accusations based upon rumors that people are sharing that is pawned off as truth with a lack of total understanding and data to pull from.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but let Heather speak to that first, then I will.
Okay. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm going to do, and what I've always done, is that I understand that every single being is source. All right? Everything that has been done was done under a certain mandate, and that mandate was for source to experience not being source. The mandate has changed. Source is going to bust out, and has been busting out, and being source very visibly. Okay, this is on a conceptual, just so that everyone understands. Now, I understand also that some data might be coming out here shortly about you have your souls, your oversouls, physical. Okay, all of this is coming out into visibility, and it's all going to be used through the vehicles that everyone is, that every embodiment is at this moment. I would, if presented with a situation where you do have folks yelling and screaming, let's get really detailed here, okay, really descriptive. You have folks yelling and screaming. Pick a character, any character, someone, Bush, Obama, whatever you want to call it, okay? Let's go with Obama. That one I always use. Obama has been sitting there, and he has actually put everything on the books through executive orders that has been practiced for millennium. And he looks like the bad guy. All right? When you understand what is going on in that through perceived chaos, and it is highly strategic. It is strategic order under the guise of chaos, in order to shake us all up, in order to help us remove our roots from the old mandate and to fly into this new mandate, okay, which is actually what we've always been all along, source, okay? So if there is pitchforks and ropes and chains, I'm going to be standing in front of the one that they're about to hit until we all sit and realize that we are all there, okay? Now, there are those that have been following the old mandate and are just refusing to let go of it. Source is retiring those particular frequencies. Okay? So really look within, really trust within. It is important for us to see what is, not what someone tells us, not what we want, but what is. And then from there, choose what you want. Choose what you want, and it's informed. Okay? It's informed, and it's through experience that you refine that informed choice and make many more. Okay? So that's where I'm going to be. And as we go through this transition, it's not a bridge because we're old a bridge, but through the transition of our own bridge vehicles, I will be standing there. There will not be any bloodletting. At the same time, there will be release. There will be release from the old mandate as we fly into this new mandate. And that's what I'm going to be doing. As far as hierarchy and everything else, Sacha, I've been watching what they've been saying, at least energetically, as well as a few of the comments. I get it. I saw that I was going to be sending you a message. Energetically, I did send it through what I call icons. I'm right there with you. I'm there even when people were talking bad about, gosh, name off any character you want. I've been there. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks of me, just that I know who I am, and that as I move forward, all I do is show love, compassion, and awareness, consciousness.
Well, that's why I refer to you as the beloved. Thank you. And you know, I'm delighted that when the pitchforks do come up, if they do, that I'll be using you as a human shield. That's very You know, Brian, I don't know where to begin to answer to stuff like that. I don't know that I care to. I couldn't give a proverbial fig about what anyone thinks about me personally. I never really much cared about that. I do what I do. I am what I am, and I'm not prepared to defend it either to troglodytes or through people who are operating on behalf of special interests, because there's a lot of that stuff out there. People have been hammering the OPPT from day one, and then the IUV, and it doesn't matter what incarnation noble expression takes on, so long as it is operating in these relatively subterranean, subtonal frequencies. We're going to be subjected to a lot of creepy crawly stuff, and that's par for the course. But what I'm not particularly keen to do is to stoop down too low and engage much energy in those conversations. Only not because I don't believe that people who are less enlightened are entitled to, great explanations, but only when they approach the wisdom flame with kindness am I prepared to put time or energy into someone time. Other than that, I'm not interested. Speaking for myself, I'm not a publicly elected official. I don't run a charity. I'm not accountable in that sense to people. I'm just doing what I do. I'm an artist fundamentally and a poet. That's the only thing I've ever regarded myself as being half decent at, oddly enough, is that. And the rest of it is just, again, expression. And I'm so fortunate in much the same way that Heather is and has been in having the most extraordinary, gifted, talented, and brilliant brothers and sisters who have variously cohered to some of what I've been on about. And don't get me wrong, I get lambasted by my own team, and I constantly get pulled down and beaten up, as it should be. But I'm no leader, and which is actually why I use bad language from time to time. I was looking at it last week and asking, why do I use bad language? Because I don't like hearing bad language. I can't bear people when they swear in my company, and yet I'm always doing it. And I thought, well, I'm trying to kind of trash my own, so that I can never be, an official. I can never be a leader because I'm just too much of a maverick to ever fulfill that space. But yeah, I don't care what people think, and I don't care to answer to them. If anyone has a coherent question on anything, including on my bank balance, I'd be happy to answer to it. In point of fact, I'll tell you now, I'm broke. I've been broke for a long time. I'm heavily broke, and I rather enjoy being broke. And it just doesn't bother me.
You're talking to a table full of broke people. So,
right.
First of all, Sacha, I so appreciate your candor, and you saw on that thread how I handle blind accusations as well. Similar to you don't throw more fuel on the fire. I think what I pulled away from that thread the most kind of the underlying theme is that people have this, they're wondering, where do I go from here as an individual? You know, what next steps do I take? Action steps that will enable me to further embody my own empowerment, my own sovereignty as a co-creator being of everything in my universe. And the troubles and the complications and the challenges of daily life make it hard to navigate through the mud of what is still transpiring on this planet today in so many areas of our lives, whether it be personal, revolving around our relationships and our careers, global, revolving around war, poverty, that stuff like what's going on in Gaza, so on and so forth. And people are really wanting to know, you know, I get emails all the time, as you do on Facebook, that, you know, I'm starting to understand it. I'm starting to integrate more of my own understanding based on my own intuition and guidance, as opposed to looking outside of myself constantly for answers from others. How can I go about navigating this terrain when I'm supposed to be in court on Monday to represent some straw man that isn't me? And how do I stop the Child Protective Services from taking my child away, as one of our friends is doing in Norway right now? And if all of this illusion is the facade that we know it all to be, how do we make the conscious choice to no longer consent to this slavery that we've been indoctrinated to believe is such a natural part of our life, when in fact it is the most unnatural part of our existence? What do you say to those people that are looking for those answers, and what kind of action steps they can take in their own personal lives based on your experience and what it is that you've gone through as an individual?
Stop paying tax. I mean, I've been saying this in everything, every time I ask the question, but if you want to do something in order to remove yourself from the dream spell, and certainly to throw yourself in the deep end as well, because trust me, you'll get a stick coming at you when you just stop paying tax. But that's fine, because the stick is also a tremendous illusion. It doesn't actually exist. So if one wants to have the cone stick of the Zen masters crack your skull, and bring oneself into this space to do something conscious, I would say stop paying tax would be a great first step for the average schmo. But you know, then there's all sorts of arguments about, oh, but I've got children and I've got responsibility. Well, hey, then go to that harvest and stay with that harvest. Yeah. Because so long as we are going to make excuses for not engaging in right action, and now it doesn't matter, even someone with an IQ of 62 knows that their dollars are paying for tanks and for drones and for strikes against developing nations. So every time you put into the system, your energy is going in to work in order to make this godless thing called money, in order to pay the utilities which go to the man who creates the prison for you to go to work to. And so that feedback cycle is set in 20 million exquisite different ways and modalities for human beings in every creed, every culture. But when they choose to step out of it is when they choose to step out of it. And the surefire way of the average pundit, or the average person listening to this show, for instance, would be, in my view, to stop paying taxes, and certainly to stop filling out one's name in block capital letters. Because all of that is just perpetuating the contracts, and that's the stuff we need to extricate ourselves from initially. But there's other ways of engaging. I mean, I rather enjoy getting pulled by police now, and when I do, I invariably end up with 2 or 3 of them sitting on the bonnet of my car having a great conversation, because there's ways of engaging people in uniform. I say that another useful thing for people to do would be to stop respecting uniforms and stop allowing that chill of fear when you hear a police siren or see a policeman. Stop engaging with that constriction state that kicks in every time you see these artificial or these imposed authorities, and that they always come in the guise of uniforms. Obviously, that's what drones do. But we need to disengage from our own connection to that space. Because every time we get that little adrenal rush, and we get that little, and it happens in cities hundreds of millions of times a day. The reason why these ambulances and fire services and police services have the Hertz frequencies encoded into those sirens designed to close down the pineal capability. Get that straight. There is nothing haphazard about those frequencies. They have been imposed in order to throw a blanket of absolute terror in the hearts of people in the cities. And you have those sirens happening in a place like London 150, 200,000 times a day. You are creating a fractal field which is a lockdown prison. You are only able to truly engage in the parasitic behaviors in that environment. So begin to challenge those things. I would say to people, engage with that stuff. Stop, ask the police, why are you doing this? Speak to people in uniforms and begin to get them to disengage also from the dream spell. But other than that, what Heather said earlier was singularly the most important thing that one can do, which is to stop doing and to be empathetic, or to be compassion. Because when we are in empathy and in compassion, we are sending long waves. And those long waves, literally at the fractal level, you can actually measure this scientifically. You send an empathic wave, it'll reach the other side of the galaxy. You send a short wave, a constricted wave, it'll die. What does this teach us about the ultimate human activity, which is supposed to be building toward our redemption or our salvation? And if we truly want to die well, having lived well, we need to be able to broadcast those long waves, so that at the point of death, we have a plasma body, an auric body, which is vast, and which we can then steer directly through the heart of the sun into a perfect bliss death state, which then will take us into our next expression, which will be the absolute pattern of perfection. Whereas now, what we've got is people being bombarded by those entropic and Cartesian and Newtonian deceptions, and living lives which are racked with fear and dread and horror. And the forms that we emit from our fractal hearts become shorter and shorter waveforms, which means that we become harvested even at death. Think about that. As if it isn't bad enough here being harvested, people being harvested through mosques and through churches and temples anyway. But the business of being harvested at death should be true, should really strike terror into our hearts and wake us up to the fact that, as Heather said earlier, compassion, compassion, compassion. Nothing else matters. I like kindness. I think that every living, warm-blooded Homo sapien enjoys kindness.
Could you say all that one more time? Just try to be a little bit more eloquent.
Kindness is sexy.
Let me. Can I ask a follow up to both of them, and then you can go, because it's perfectly related to this. So you're okay. Real quick, because I got a million of these.
Brian so much.
I want to talk to Dee.
She's up next. Don't worry. Get in line, sweetheart.
I was.
We not done yet. I said it was a two-part
I'll
question.
manage here. You go finish your question.
So, our listening audience, which has definitely been amplified as a result of you coming on the show, because you have people that are very interested in the things that you share. The majority of these people have taken a lot of those action steps already. I haven't paid taxes since 2004. I'm also broke. I didn't register my car. I had no car insurance. I challenged all my lenders, including my car company, to prove there was ever actually a debt that existed. They didn't. I didn't want to live in a country of bondage, so I left the United States and moved to Morocco. Little small steps, right? But I think what a lot of the people that are kind of looking for, whether consciously or unconsciously, is I'm taking all these action steps as an individual, and I'm having varying degrees of comfort level depending on the responses that I'm getting and how much fear that's still triggering within me when you get that knock at the door, the police officer, the process server that's trying to call you into court or whatever. Where can we rally and how do we move together as a collective in this effort? And I know that's a big part of what New Earth Nation is about, and I'm interested in hearing the answer from both you and Heather, because it's such a prevalent and prominent thing that whether or not people are expressing it on threads like the one that you saw on Facebook or not, that's a big wanting to know and wanting to have that resonance and that frequency of, I feel as if for myself as an individual that I'm harmonizing with those that are around me, and we are all moving together as one human family forward, never to look back again. So, if Heather, if you just want to jump in at this point, I know that people want to know that, and I'm. One of the things I do, Sacha, is I make sure that I try to provide the people that are listening with a voice and answers to their questions.
Well, I'm happy to answer to how we are looking to address some of the mechanics. And should I do that, Heather?
Please.
Okay. So,
I'm done.
And I'm, again, the least qualified to speak to matters of law. I am no fundi here, but I do know that the International Tribunal for Natural Justice that we're setting up right now, part of the process that we're engendering is with our private attorney general, Rod Class, we are beginning a program this year, principally in the United States, of training up 1,000 private attorneys general. And this is just form. And then going after the 3,500 odd judges in the United States who are all acting in treason and in fraud and in deception. So when we've got the private attorneys general able to take action against the judges who are maintaining the status quo, we begin to see the emergence of a reverse engineering of the diabolical mechanics of law. So the mechanics is what we have to engage with. I mean, God knows that's what Heather and the crew did painstakingly. But now we're taking it to private attorneys general, sheriffs, and the capacity to enforce that pure law, without which we will be in trouble. Because ultimately, we know now, look just at the Bundy Ranch incident that occurred in the United States recently. That was a classic, to my mind, that was the most exciting event that we may have seen in respect of the federal authority having to stand down. Now, I know there's a lot of info and disinfo and double disinfo flying around that particular issue, but that was a remarkably beautiful event that occurred when the Federal Land Management Agency were beating to death just a good generational farmer. Just sheer Agenda 21, total thievery, banditry, privateering taking place. And that man loaded up his shotgun and stood at the gate and said, "Come at me." And when they did send in the black helicopters and the assault, the military, effectively 200 or 300 cowboys on horseback appeared over the hill with loaded shotguns. Now that was very, very effective because that pretty much put the federal authorities in check. They could either have begun a massacre there, which would have started a civil war long before they intend to engineer it. And that situation didn't work out well for the feds, put it that way. But it taught a lot of people in Midwest America that they do carry the day, provided they stand up and get out of the front door, put down the remote control, put down the Kool-Aid, and get involved. So that if we can show people together through the private attorney general's training program that we're doing and the sheriffs, engaging with the sheriffs, and if we can show the average person that the mechanics are arriving on their street for them to engage with, the metric is laid for them to engage with, I believe that that's when we will see millions of people getting involved, but not really before, because they can't make the connect. They see government as being this hugely powerful, colossal kind of elemental cloud that exists somewhere that always carries the day, always wins the day. Not so. As Heather said, Source is redefining that covenant.
Beautiful.
You know, I was really lucky that all my backup for the investigations just disappeared. Okay, everything from budget to legal teams to infrastructure, intel even at one point went dark. I was really blessed to have that experience because I actually had to go boots on the ground and go in myself. And I've worked with judges since law school. I had a really great internship that I did. And so I've had multiple aspects. Okay, I've seen corrupt. Everything from a Pentagon, a general brigadier that sat on a lowly bench, hiding there, while I was going through the investigations, that advises the Pentagon, to just these amazing people. So what I learned through the whole thing was to see them, and Sacha, you're exactly right, don't see the uniform. The uniform is a symbol to be able to invoke the shortwaves. And I'm going to go just a little bit because I know Dee's got more on this, but it is not the shortwaves I focus on. And I couldn't even identify what it was until I went into these investigations with the fear. Okay? I had to work through the fear. And I found that it's like Monsters, Inc., it's more powerful for me to laugh than it is for me to scream. And I got to go in and I got to see judges that would sit there and follow the scripts. I watched attorneys follow the scripts. I watched sheriffs follow the scripts. I watched every single person from an observer to the clerk all follow scripts. And it was really, I'm so blessed to have that experience because I got to see them as them. Not as I was told, not as I wanted them to be, but definitely for what they are. And we had some huge shifts in there. I got to see a judge who just, I scared the hell out of him. Not intentionally. I just went in and I was myself, but I was shooting long waves. And when you're used to short waves, the long waves can knock you on your ass because it's not just going through you and stopping at you, it's going out. And I watched him for 6 weeks study up on what the hell I was doing without even talking to me, without doing anything. He gets really nervous around me. And then I watched him go into a courtroom one day and hand me data in front of everyone, screaming and yelling at me. So the bank attorney's focused on him screaming and yelling at me and going, yes, all right, she's getting it. She's getting what she deserves. And yet he's giving me all the data. And it just didn't matter how he delivered it, just that I got the data. And at that point, I was so in love with the man. And I was in love with this attorney. I was in love with just the whole experience because there are so many that are and have propagated the former systems that knew that we could do this, all of us, and assisted in ways that maybe we just weren't aware of, but they did. And so when this comes down, Sacha, I would really like to talk with you and see how I can assist and just be me as far as sending out those long waves. Like I said, because it'll either be we go hand in hand, all of us, or you're going to find me in front as a shield until this all settles down. And that's for anyone. Okay, so I don't prefer the Neo. I like that statement. Are you saying I can dodge bullets when the time comes? I'm saying when the time comes, you won't have to. And that's where we are, you know. So as far as how we move forward, this will delve into the energetics. The energetics will make itself visible. It is all about energy, long waves, short waves, and changing it up. And then you will see exactly what the money system, what the time time mechanism, we're all hiding, which is frequencies and energy, and that's all there is. And
you're absolutely right about this, Heather. And to speak about that judge, I mean, that's a beautiful story, and it's one that we should constantly be reminded of, because it is perfectly true. There are so many people, goodly people in the corridors of power who themselves will actively participate in this unfoldment and this awakening, given half a chance. But if we continue to simply be, again, that army of creepy crawlies who just want to hurl rocks at the citadel and set fire to everything, well, we're going to be in a great deal more trouble with that kind of energetic behind us, right. Infantry shooting into our backs. So I had yesterday a special ops military guy here, one of the guys who trains squadrons around the world in the desert, and a friend of mine for long standing. I know a number of these extraordinary guys who variously done a Faustian pact over the years and have participated in militancy. This guy yesterday, who's somebody I love very much, and he's ostensibly a very scary character. Nothing could be further from the truth. I know the man's heart. I've known it for nearly 20 years. He was coming in to check if I'm okay and to also continue to offer more backup and do we need gooks and spooks for anything that we're doing right, you know, that kind of thing. And we've had a bit of this in the past, and we've been tipped off when things have been dodgy, and I've had guns at the head on a couple of occasions, and I've been in really some scary situations where I have not, in the same way that you did, I mean, I was able to extend a sense of curiosity and love in the events as they were happening, because that's just my nature. my nature is to be curious, even if there is a 38 Smith & Wesson aimed at the head. It's just like, wow, well, that's an interesting turn of events, you know. And then put that in that way, that there's a level of idiocy in that response, but that's how I blunder through life and have done in many of the situations which were uncomfortable for me. But this gentleman yesterday, the special ops guy, reminded me. He was telling me that some of the senior ranking special ops guys in the world, and that's from everywhere from the Middle East to Siberia, he said are really wanting out of this game. And he said, we know, we are sitting in those rooms, we are the close protection security when those deals are being cut by these old serpents with black diamonds and with all sorts of weird stuff going down, Masonic, occultist bullshit. And he said, me and my buddies, and this guy's been at it for 20 years, okay, he's not a novice, he said, are pretty much up to here with this. And we look at our kids now, and some of us are even getting grandkids, okay, and are looking into the eyes of our children and going, nah, what am I paying into? So it seems to me, and that was a very beautiful meeting for me. It was 3 hours long, and at the end of it, it qualified a lot for me about where we may be at with the military-industrial complex even. There's a lot of biotechnicians and molecular biologists and all sorts of military guys and who are just good humans looking for a means to express that humanity. And I would sooner, and I also believe that those guys are the ones, the good Eagle Scouts, are the ones that will make the difference in the next 2 years. I'm one of these that believe that between now and 2017 we will see the end of this game, and a conscious collective ascendancy I believe will take place within the next 2.5 years. I'm happy to say that on the record.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. I'm going to do some rewrites. Let's do some rewrites so we can up that up.
No more
I don't work
linear
on time
time.
continuum, Sacha. When it feels good, let's do it.
Say 2 years or less. That sounds better.
I'm so happy to hear
less?
You want to go with your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just actually wanted to talk about this because this is actually really important. And especially what Sacha was talking about with the short waves and the long waves and the fear. I've touched on it in articles. My background is political advocacy for maternal and infant health. So when you were talking about the whole thing of the birthing and what was done to a child, it's like, oh, darling, you have no idea what's been done. And maybe one day we'll have a conversation all about that and how it affects the humanity levels that we're at right now. But when I did all my advocacy, all the work that I did was through Facebook, because it was this lovely tool that had been given to us to be able to reach out across the planet to join people together. And yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I can't help it, guys. And then one day, I went into my Facebook. Having been off, I had been really, really busy for a couple of weeks and I had not gone on. And I opened my Facebook and started to scroll down my wall. And I looked, and every article that was posted was about this baby who died from his circumcision, and this baby who died from the vaccines, and this mother who died while giving birth because of a botched cesarean section. And all of a sudden I sat there and I looked at this and was like, oh my God, how is this affecting me? When you read, and it's like, because of, that's what I said my job was to bring this information forward. So therefore you have to be involved and you have to read and keep up to date with every piece of this news. And then I realized what it was doing to me and my own frequency of, like you say, the waves get shorter, 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 even though you're trying to move in love, because you are so inundated with this fear from every aspect. It affects you in a daily basis in ways that you can't even comprehend. And now that I'm looking at, I've watched people that I interact with daily. For example, I have several Skype rooms, and I have these incredible people I deal with who are so amazingly smart, who are so educated on alternative health, on consciousness on so many levels. And then I watch them slip back because they're following every little thing going on in the alternative media, and they follow what's going on in Gaza, and they're following what's going on in the Ukraine, and this, and they dig, and they become overwhelmed
Numb.
with those short frequencies that it literally
Shuts them down.
incapacitates them, and it shuts them down. And I've had conversations where I've said to them, but you know what you need to do, because you and I've had this conversation a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, and yet now you're in this place of fear, and it becomes a block, and then it's like, how do I move forward? I'm so afraid. And it's those short frequencies, and that's one of the things I talk when we talk about what can people do. One of the things that I've done most recently is to just unplug from all of that and say, I can glance at the headlines and go, "Oh, that's really funny," or this, and sometimes
So where's the
something
purpose? We don't need to
specifically.
do these shows anymore. We can stop blogging. We can we can do all.
I'm not saying that.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Okay, we're done. I'm retired.
It's a wrap. But people need to be conscious of the data they're taking in and its effect on them physically, emotionally, consciously, and how.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
One thing I'll say, to just in line with what Dee just said, is
Are
we
you
talk,
hearing me okay?
we hear you. Awareness is about.
I wanted to just say something to what Dee's speaking about, because it's so important what she's saying. And again, forget about the intellectual or philosophical or spiritual dimensions of sovereignty, of 0 point. Forget about that for a moment and just look at the biological form, your body. And your body is the technology. I love the fact that Heather said this earlier, because in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been speaking constantly about the human body being the ultimate technology. We are the galactic technology, perfected. And this is just something which in my dream state, I'm also exploring at the moment. But I'll tell you this, I've just been in the hills of southern France with my dear friend, the physicist Dan Winter, and his genius crew. And we're making 3 films at the moment, which you guys will know about, because I intend to get out to you guys with a film crew as well soon enough. But what I'm learning from the electrochemistry and the biochemistry aspect to what Dee's just been talking about is seminal.
Yes.
Oxygenation.
Yes.
Actually, if you oxygenate your blood properly, you emit naturally, you can decontaminate yourself, and you send out longer forms. You're more able to engage with empathic resonance and so on, simply by being oxygenated properly. And also to be hydrated properly. And another interesting factor here, and I don't want to take this beautiful meeting into the subterranean depths of shape-shifting reptilians, much as I love that subject, but what I will say is that whether we agree with that or not, we cannot disagree with the lower astral realms, the so-called demonic lower frequency realms, constantly imposing itself on the expression of humanity. And if we want to, as living men and women, if we want to become protected, so to speak, from that kind of lower astral intrusion or invasion, then a purely hydrated and oxygenated body is actually the most important thing you could have, believe it or not. And the biochemists I've been talking to have been telling me how this works at the fractal level and in respect of the Hertz frequencies that we emit. So don't underestimate that.
Oh, our bodies are water. Our bodies are oxygen. And
draconians do not like water. They like methane. They like the absence of oxygen. The reason why our planet is being desecrated multi-generationally by human beings who have themselves been co-opted by lower astral intelligences is because there are those intelligences, supraplanetary intelligences that would arguably seek to put this planet into an entropic, oxygen-depleted environment.
Okay, so Sacha, you guys have opened the door to what is about to spill out, okay? All over. And all the data will be there, not one piece missing, all right? So First off, you realize everything's a construct. Once you realize everything's a construct, but where the source is, okay? So it's not just me. That's the one thing that kept me going, was it's not just me doing this, all right? There's many aspects to me that maybe I'm not aware of, but I can feel them, I can sense them. Okay, all the guys that you're referring to and girls on all sides of the ponds in every dimension of reality, everyone is tired of what we went through. Okay, so there's so much help, and it's just a matter of opening up and sensing it. Okay, you may not be able to see it, but you can sense it, you can feel it, and it's actually what is driving and what's always driven me. All right, at this point, a lot of people are sensing that and standing up where maybe they wouldn't have 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago. All right, so that I trust in that. I trust that no matter what situation I'm in, I'm going to know exactly what to do. And this I am tech, or the I tech, or the body tech is where I'm absolutely focused on. I'm focused on the vehicle that my soul, my being came in. All right. And then being responsible for any extension or tool that I use as an extension as we go through, whether it's technology, whether it's communication, any kind of financial, it doesn't matter. Whatever I choose, I'm just going to be aware of it. 'Cause first, I got to be aware of myself and how this body functions. I'm really excited to hear, like you said, you're speaking with all these experts, and I really want these experts to stand out, because a lot of them, I've seen all this data come through when I was in bank, trade, and finance, and it all got buried. All this tech got buried, and I had Raymond King, who would always discuss with me, I want to distribute, I want to find, if we can't be in charge, then let us be in charge of distribution, where that's always the bottleneck. That's how you stop it. I'm like, it's already all right. Everything was distributed since the beginning. Just didn't see it. So there's no distribution to even worry about. And right now you've got Source activating that tech, okay? And actually it's not even activation of the tech. It's activation of the consciousness of the tech that has always been functioning in these bodies. And it's refining itself by how conscious you are of it, okay? It's actually inherent. The activation function is inherent within the body. So I'm really excited about this. We'll go into it, I'm sure, more later, but it's a great intro at this point because we use it all the time. About 99% of the work that I've been working with these guys for over the last year, and then of course Caleb and Loie and all these others before that, never got reported about, because the databases, and to explain how enforcement and what I was using for enforcement, or what we relied on or trusted in enforcement. I trust in the blokes like the guy that you just described, sitting down with you going, I've had enough, because I can feel him, I can sense him. I may not know him by name, but I know there are many of them, and not just here on this planet, but also off. But you got to start somewhere. So I'm going to start here with me, and then sense and feel, and then see them. And they will show themselves as well. So it's okay. I don't mind standing. Let's do it. I'm really excited about this, Sacha. I really thank you for getting on and doing this. It takes only two hands to join together before others see, and they start holding their hand out as well. And we all join together, and we'll refine this. And if someone doesn't like something, just say it, okay? And then we make another choice and go from there. There's nothing to be fearful about. Just have fun with it. The more laughter, that's the biggest cure ever. Say laughter in medicine, and they freak out. They don't want you to be happy. And if you actually put laughter as the mandate for the medical industry, they would have to change the way the hospitals look, how they feel. Actually, you're in Malaysia, right? You spend a lot of time in Asia?
Right now I'm in London, but I have a base in Indonesia, yeah.
Okay, so I know that when I was in bank, trade, and finance and shifting back into it after the prosecutor's office, there were a lot of these sports and spas being created where you could get medical attention in such a way that it geared to the fact that your family makes you heal. It also, the environment, the feeling, something beautiful instead of clinical and sterile. It all affects the bio that's in your body, right? Correct. So these are things that I'm looking for. I am very focused on the body tech. I am very focused on the soul tech coming through the body tech, and it all just fusing into one. So I want to get more into that later, but thank you for the intro into that, and that's where my whole heart is right now.
Oh, beautiful. Well, I'd love to have another chat with you about the bioarchitecture that we've been developing for many years, because we have been doing it. Mm-hmm. And I honestly believe that the various team that we represent is leading the world in this now. We've built prototypes based on sacred geometric principles, and using things like organ and what have you. But we're getting results in Bali
in our prototypes of plant growth of over 200% increase by simply charging the seeds inside one of the bioresonant accelerator forms for 72 hours. I mean, this is remarkable stuff. But then I'm speaking to world-leading physicists like Konstantin Korotkov and Dan Winter and Bill Donovan and various other friends who are informing the process, mathematically speaking. And I'm learning increasingly that bioresonance is pure science. It's fractal science. It's everything that's right and proper about being a living man or a living woman on a living planet when we're not being interceded and having our noble expressions stolen from us so that we become drone worker bees and all the rest of it. But whilst we're on the subject of fractality, you're going to come in for a hail of bullets for having the hand of Fatima with the all-seeing eye over your right shoulder and the pentagram. I can just see it now.
We're in Morocco, come on. And that's the energetics we're talking about here today, sporadically and dispersed through this. That's why I'm here in Morocco. And I think Mel V was the first one that asked me, why are you in Morocco? Why Morocco? And that will all be visible as well. But it has to do with these centralized focuses from the former systems. The money side was always, and representation side was always from China. You put America in front, okay? But everything's run from China. Then you have the energetics, and everyone thinks it's Ireland. And then you have Morocco behind. They never put the one out in front. It's okay. So I get this. I said if they could see the pentagrams that are on the floor, the Eye of Horus, the Hand of Fatima, I mean, it's just, and that's okay because it doesn't matter. It's not going to lock and limit. We'll just keep shining and it becomes irrelevant. So I don't focus on that stuff, but I did notice it. It is quite comical.
Brian, I saw a number of questions on the thread related to Sino, Sugihato and the purported King of Kings and Swiss Indo and all the rest of it. Is this something we want to touch on? The only reason why I'm keen to speak a little to it is because I noticed that some of the folks piling on that thread was stating that I'm a delegate of Swiss Indo, which I am not, for the record, never have been. But is this something we're comfortable about speaking to?
It's so funny that you asked that because right before we jumped online, I showed Dee the list of questions that I pulled from that thread, and I had her put in bold the ones that she thought were most prevalent, and she said, "Make sure that you ask this one." What is?
I'm here. I'm just going to step off camera.
What is your position on Swiss Indo? So whatever it is you feel inclined to share, by all means. Now would be a great time.
I'm more than happy to, because I've not had any spooky engagement. I've only had Pacific engagements with Sino and his council. Yes, I know him, and yes, I've met him, not in the flesh, on Skype, interestingly enough, which was curious. I'm also very connected to the pathology of the so-called Asian gold, because interestingly enough, nearly 10 years ago, Humanitad, my foundation, was embroiled in some transactions where we were helping the Asian Trust at that time and the living trustee at that time to try to free up some of the federal safekeeping receipts that had been issued to that trust since the end of the Second World War. And we spent a couple of years traveling with a few $1 trillion worth of these federal safekeeping receipts, trying to get AAA rated banks to use their Fed screens to have them honored. And we failed in that endeavor. At a given point, I told my team to desist. I said, this is not going to help. We can't help free up using our NGO status and our connections politically. We're not able to free up any of these federal safekeeping receipts or the value to the Asian Trust. So let's just let it go. It was clear to me 10 years ago that we were locked down in endemic fiduciary mafiosa. And that's where we've been for a very long time. So the story of the Asian gold is not new to me. 3 of my directors 10 years ago, at my behest, went to go and see the gold in caves in Southeast Asia on 2 different trips, and they did. Photographed stuff, brought them back to me. Even a gold bar was brought back to London. And yes, it appears to be Swiss Indo gold. So then for me to be approached more recently, this year, I think it was in March, by the council of Sino, I was familiar with the story from 10 years ago, albeit he is now the living trustee. He's, the old living trustee must have died, one assumes. And I then looked at the huge furore around the Sino A1 saga, and I'll be quite frank with you, I don't know. I don't know. Energetically, I have not received any psychic hits that warn me. Again, I'm not afraid of anything in this world, be clear about that. So I'm maybe blundering into things, but I've had engagements with him and his counsel only in as much as we were approached by them recently and asked if we could bring some of our brain trust in they thought that the New Earth Nation was a good, clean, blank canvas and we'd done it well by maintaining this absolute neutrality and not having hierarchy and not having agendas, so to speak, but just creating a blank canvas. And they respected that. And secondly, they asked if we could engage in helping to articulate an international framework, a new framework for international law, and a new framework for international banking. And yes, I'm connected to some of the world's leading economists and have been for well over a decade. And I've been publishing stuff in macroeconomics for well over 10 years as well. It's a subject I'm fairly conversant with, he said, scratching his head. I was told you should never scratch your head when you're answering a question. It means you're lying. But actually, I banged my head on my bathroom cabinet yesterday. That's why I'm doing it. So we were approached by them and we engaged. And my own engagement with Sino was very pacific, and I found him to be fairly delightful with a great sense of humor, which was refreshing. But I can't speak to the subject beyond that. And Mel V, who is a friend of mine and an enemy of many, bless her heart, she's such an amazing firebrand. But Mel V is involved with them, I believe, and as some of her instincts I trust tremendously. I'm not afraid of the situation. I do believe that I know the gold exists because, again, over 10 years ago, 3 of my own directors were sent to go and see it, and we saw it. And how can that be lent as collateral to the issue of a new planetary whatever? Who knows? Who cares? I mean, I personally don't think that we should have anything backing any new currencies other than empathy and fellowship and love and creative expression, basically.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that was going to be my next question. First of all, big shout out to Mel V. We love Mel V. And she'll listen to this, so she'll appreciate the shout out. Let's turn this down. What do you say to the ever-growing large collective that believes that the answer to some of the major challenges that we're facing individually and collectively as a human race is to have this large redistribution of wealth, and that being the answer, whether it be to the tune of $5 or $10 billion or 6 million and whatever it is from what Swissendo has to say? I mean, do you see, what's your perspective on that, just from a very generalized and whatever it is you want to share?
My understanding is that there's anywhere between $600 and $900 trillion worth of gold in respect of street value, if we're to believe what we're told, which is housed variously in different depots across Southeast Asia archipelagos, and that may or may not be the case. And I just don't bloody know. I mean, I've thought about it. I've thought, well, there was about a month that I spent earlier this year just thinking, okay, if that is the scenario and we can get the gold and we can get countries of the world, especially the BRIC nations and the developing nations, the G77 nations, if we can get those countries to begin to accept this gold as backing to the issue of a new 0-point non-usurious system, how is this going to play out? Do you deposit $2.6 million in every man, woman, and child's account? And there's a certain grotesquerie to that idea, frankly, as far as I'm concerned. It just doesn't sit well with me. I don't want to be engaging with bank accounts. I don't want to be engaging with false value in that way. I find it really quite discomforting. So my mind was not cohering and my heart was not cohering to that language, albeit one could do that, mathematically speaking. One could engage. if Swiss Indo were to say, here's the gold, and we would actually see it and touch it now, forget 10 years ago, and if we would be able to work with that gold and free up the national debt in 250 odd countries as a one pure action, I would say that would be delightful. And as for the rest of the gold, I'd say let's make toilet bowls out of it.
You know, I'm
Here.
really interested to see what Heather has to elaborate on this one. I could tell she's queuing up already, so go for it.
Heather's got some
Where does it
interesting
go,
info,
Heather?
I can tell you on that one.
This isn't like a drop-in note in a larger conversation. This is probably a conversation all on its own, okay? I'll say that to begin with. So we can go over general concepts, and the best way that I can do that is by going from my own experience, okay? Things that I've experienced in whatever way I've experienced them, but speaking from what I've experienced. You end up having collateral accounts. The whole entire system was built on creating a box and then having a system to be able to measure, okay? Because how do you measure source, okay? Other than creating a measurement system so that you can experience yourself in some limit and then just shooting outside the box, right? So I really am thankful and grateful for purported collateral accounts, financial system, the energy regulators, because that's where it really actually comes from. You know, if you want to treat Earth is like an exchange traded fund. You know, I love ETFs. ETFs are probably the greatest transparency tool in the whole financial system.
Yep.
Okay? You can only bring something that is actually value into it. It has to actually be something tangible, right? And then what they do is they create, it's actually called creation units that they cut, right? Creation units. And the way that you actually get creation units is by bringing something of value in, so creation units can be cut out. And then they have a mirror set up on a NASDAQ or some kind of market system, and that's actually where the fiat is all generated, okay? Earth is an exchange traded fund, and the little funds that are inside of it are just the beings themselves, okay? I've always known from the beginning, Loie and I, Loie's my mom, Loie and I used to talk about this all the time. What is the easiest way to have a very peaceful moment, okay, in that transition from mandates, you know, the not experiencing source to experiencing that you are source, and that was just full remembrance, okay? Then the other thing was, what makes money, time, and all of that irrelevant, okay? Do you do bridges? And then, of course, everyone's going to fight over bridges. Everyone's going to fight over who distributes, who manages, who controls, who gets to experience the bridge even.
Yes.
Okay, so at that point, it was really simple. Have everyone actually experience the value that they be in these vehicles. That's why if you have people that can manifest with their thoughts and know that they can manifest, you can manifest anything you want. You want to manifest 500,000, which I think is so funny because now they're saying if they move to this gold-backed system, right? And you can't take a commodity and make it a backing for a financial system, which is why they're trying to take down the whole commodity as far as gold and silver go, because, you know, they know that. It's already been dispersed.
The silver fix going down and
silver fix going down, people backing out. Okay, so here's the thing. If I'm able to manifest whatever it is I want, and let's say I manifest 500,000, they've now got, and actually it's been there. Basel III has been in existence actually for years. They just haven't been able to implement it. Okay, and I worked with one of the Basel III certified guys that go in, and they tell you whether a bank is good or not. Can they meet the Basel III requirements? And he used to sell certificates of good standing in lieu of lines of credit so that he could build his own business. And we called him Dr. Death because it only took a bad letter or a good letter to determine whether you were going to live or die. Okay? I've seen so much of all of this, and I've had my own experiences. It was not just a blurb in a conversation. This is a whole conversation on its own, and really not one I care to pay too much energy into. Okay, I am focused on the tech that these vehicles are for the being that comes and shines through it, because then money's irrelevant. Then whether or not you have a patch of land to grow some food is irrelevant. You can experience whatever you want, and you can use time as a mechanism to elongate it or shorten it, and determine whether you just want to manifest it out of thought or whether you want to actually experience and give and interchange with the actual seed that grows into a plant.
Yeah.
It just depends, and that should be everyone's own personal choice in their journey. The collateral account, Swiss Indo, I got to talk to Sino on Skype, same as you, not in person. Nobody really comes to visit me in person except for these crazy folks. And so Sino was just a beautiful energy. Of course, he had, there was a language issue or an interpretation issue. And so a man named Ross, I can't even remember his full name, Ross Hanley, just jumps in, and he's got a whole different energetic signature than Mr. Sino. But we spent an hour and a half, and I really listened to what they were saying. And I had Michiel, he's like the Eric Holder of Italy, right? And he's contacting indirectly and saying, we need a solution. The systems have not been able to generate funds since 2012. Okay, so they're on fumes. When I say they're on fumes, they're pulling from their own vaults at this point. And like you say, Sacha, everyone sitting here is broke because we've used all the tools from the old system to do what we did. Now, can we manifest? Absolutely, and we always do. So that's why we're still sitting here after being broke for however many years, is because we can manifest it, okay? Whatever we need, we always have the tools we require to do what we desire. And that is how we actually function. These body techs bring in our soul. Our soul's already got everything. Okay, our beingness, because even soul is another level and hierarchy in this whole thing. Over soul, you've got avatar. I mean, there's so many different functions. And at least I had gotten some data. I'm looking at it going, yes, I've seen it, and I know it's there. I know that it's been there. I'm choosing to focus energy here and now on this. There's no limits to you, and that's why I really wanted to have this as video so that I could see you, because even if we're not in the same room, I'm still able to send those long waves. They get to you, and they actually go out even further. 1 + 1 does not equal 2. Never has. So with the collateral accounts, with Mr. Sino, Swiss Indo, I was very clear, is a transparency tool. And the old man, people call him grandfather, they have many names for him. He's been working on transparency. We all have, okay? In order to make this moment now and to have this glorious explosion of light coming from every vehicle throughout the universe and back again, and then generating that overabundance, that over unity. There is no lack whatsoever. Can I play with all these tools? Can I go in and reactivate certain tools? Yes, but they're not going to look like they did before. They won't. Okay, there's no lack anymore. And when what is required to reactivate those tools is done, that's what they're afraid of, which is why they don't want it done. And that's okay. I get that. So I've really focused and listened to them and us for the whole entire time, through the investigations, through all of it. I wanted to know and experience from both sides, proverbial both sides, because how else do you find where you meet in the middle and where you actually have always been and you never left, unless you listen to both them and us. Okay, so I listened to Sino, I listened to all those guys. All I can say is it's time to join hands, everyone. It's time to move forward and realize we never actually let hands go. We've all been together this whole entire time, working from different approaches, and I'm really ready to rock and roll this thing and really, really enjoy the light that has never been experienced before, not just on this planet, but in this universe. And collateral counts, okay, we can reactivate those, but it's not going to look like it did before.
No, exactly right. Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Well, that's one of the things that's very, very interesting. In the there is no lack. We have been playing, if you will, or teaching ourselves again about there is no lack, just in our own local where we are. And it's an ongoing joke between Heather and I that where we are in Morocco, it is very, very dry, and all of a sudden we had this wells started drying up, people didn't have water, and you realize you start paying energy into that, where you talk about, okay, well, we shouldn't water the garden every day because there could be a lack of water. We can't do this. Well, let's not do this because we don't want to run out of water.
21 people deciding not to shower because you don't want to run out of water is not pleasant.
No. So we sit there one day and everyone has gone out, and it's basically Heather and I and our 8 kids. Because We are clinically insane. Don't ask. So we're sitting there, and literally, the pump turns off in the well, and we have no water. So we're sitting there hauling, the good old-fashioned way. You got the bucket on the rope, dropping it down the well, hauling it up. And as we're hauling up water, Heather says to me, we created this. And I'm like, yeah, shut up and just pull water. It's like, it was so in our face. We created this because that's what we kept paying our energy. So then we sat there and we were like, there is no lack of water. No, we are not. There is more than enough water for everyone to do what we need to do.
And almost immediately there was water.
There was water. We had water.
That's the grail, and you got it. Yeah. And that is physics. That is pure physics.
No, because we had to go through a couple more times of this because we
either which way, humans create climate, create water, create primary water. We are it. Absolutely. That's a beautiful story.
Well, and that's it. But it was an in your face. You sit there and you want people say, can you do this? Can you manifest this? My analogy that I always use is manifesting a tomato. Can you do this? And I'm like, no, but I can manifest water. Because we've proven it over and over now, and we can unmanifest water.
But that's a flip of fear. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And when you realize that you acted in fear and you actually manifested whatever that fear toned, okay? Mm-hmm. And then I just put an imagination to that fear, and that frequency creates. I can create the exact opposite, or I can create something completely new, something never experienced. That is so empowering at that moment. And it's been a journey for me personally to come to that realization. Now there's nothing anyone can tell me that you can't manifest, because there's not one thing I can't manifest. If I feel it and I want to experience it, it's done before I even start. That's where we are, and that's where things are going at this point. So yes, do I see all this stuff over here, fear and fear porn and all of that? Of course I do. I do see it. I'm not ignoring it. But I'm going to change it, I'm going to do what resonates with me and manifest something not in fear, but in love and compassion. That's the best thing that I can say right now as to what I'm going to do.
I say again, it's pure science, and where we project our plasma bodies, and we are all of us variously wizards and warlocks and witches, whether we're conscious or unconscious of those processes. That's how we operate in different waveforms whilst we're asleep in different states of consciousness. Yeah. We're constantly casting spells upon one another and curses and blessings in this world. And when we begin to understand that those energetics, those supra and sub-energetics are the energetics that actually create a pincer movement in our reality field that actually becomes the dance of Shiva and Shakti in respect of manifestation. This is something so important. I mean, when you identify with scarcity and we project our plasma body toward that form, then scarcity will do our bidding. It will be our overlord. It will hold the space. And conversely, when we project the other will emerge. And this is the real majesty of the human condition that is emerging now off the back of a very long and arguably diabolical galactic sleep, is that we are awakening with this photonic capacity to bend time, as we discussed earlier, and to manifest things almost instantaneously. Certainly, the more we release these false constraints and notions of time, we will indeed be able to manifest instantaneously, because it is where we plasma embed our projected id. That is where the majesty of our immortal energetics will carry. So there is nothing that we cannot accomplish, nothing we cannot achieve, or nothing we cannot be or create. And the more we are able to simply own that space and own that knowing, we become it. And then the whole of that Canaanite, ritualistic, Babylonian, god-awful paradigm that we're all aware is so toxic becomes voided in one instant.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's where I'm going to let these guys take over for the rest with you, and I'll follow in. But I just wanted to say this. No, I know, but I'm watching. She has a clock up on here, that girl. And what I want to say is this. I've got my toolbox, okay? And the biggest thing that I have in my toolbox right now is me. For me, in my toolbox. So I am going to put my toolbox out and join together with all the other toolboxes, and I really want to get this rolling so fast in a twinkle of an eye. Okay?
Good, thank you. And then that's open season now to be harassing you. So I thank you for that.
Anytime.
Welcome to the club.
We do it all the time.
And speaking of time, though, we have been recording this now for a couple of hours. So just as we start to wrap things up, I'm going to hand things over to Brian, and where he can just throw out some of the questions that we know are the most common that did come up both in the chat room, on the website, and through Facebook, various Facebook threads. And if you guys could just give, some concise, short answers to them where you can, if you can. And I have deliberately stepped back today because I really wanted to enjoy myself, the interaction between the two of you, and watch you guys play together. And I feel very honoured to be here in the space that we're in, with everybody that has supported bringing this together. As makeshift as it looks, you've got no idea what was required to put it together.
The energy that went into it.
And the people, and who are truly devoted to assisting in any way they can. And I know you've got your own team of highly devoted people who do that too. And I just want to give they know who they are, so a shout out.
Nice. Ditto that.
So, Brian, take it away.
Well, it's going to be funny asking some of these questions because we've gotten into the realm of what we're used to talking about, Sacha, which is a lot revolved around the energetics and the manifestation and the internal technology and how we tap into these innate abilities that we have lying dormant within all of us as individuals and the collective. And now we're getting back into like specifics about documents and that kind of thing. And I don't necessarily think that aids the flow of where we've headed.
No.
But what we could do is I could just throw out a few, so that way the people that spent the time to write the questions that
may
really
I
need
make
some
a different
assistance.
suggestion?
What?
I see you have them on a doc form.
Yep.
I will spend the time and energy to answer each of those questions
You just read my mind.
specifically. And that way
course
we
you
can
did.
post them later
Yeah.
and finish this up in the energetics that
I
we've
think
set.
that's an excellent.
Thank you.
That's a really good
Forward
idea.
it to you as
We'll
well.
send it to Sacha, and
And
they'll
send
get
it
the
to Sacha,
answers,
too.
and we'll compile it, and then we'll publish it out so that everyone can
Beautiful.
get
Okay.
the answers.
Can I just ask one question real quick that's off this, and then we'll do that. I really like that idea. We'll just
Okay.
put it on. But
course
you're
you
going to do
like it,
video.
because
It's
I
not-
do the
It's
work.
not just audio, right? Video
And
as well.
Sacha does the
No,
work.
she'll type it.
She's going to do video too. This is an event for Heather. When was the last time you were on a video conference? I don't know.
Never.
Never.
Ever. So
This is a first.
that's a note to Sacha for sure, big time. As of late, we all live together in here in Morocco and Alstom, and it's somewhat of a compound that we live in with 20 of us there right now. And every
Listen, bro, you're hitting me up for a loan. The answer is no.
you don't even know how much yet. So
I will stop in from here.
I just want to end this on a it's been such a beautiful call and such a beautiful sharing, and I knew that's exactly how it was going to be and why I was so excited for the days leading up to this. So Sacha, my deepest bows and gratitude for you coming on and sharing this time with us. It's been an interesting time the last couple of weeks, and we've had Heather specifically has had people reach out to her that she hasn't talked to in years, all at the same time. It seems via Skype, people that she's had really close contacts with over the years,
just
all
'cause they
coming
can't get
together at
the
the same time
reevaluation done.
for whatever
They can't
reason.
get the RV through, so it's like, oh, Heather.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, there's been all of these characters that have swung into focus that have been coming out of the woodwork. I have to say synchronistically all at the same time. I would ask Heather what you think is is going on behind all that, and what's happening right now that is in the unseen that is for whatever reason is all happening at this moment. What is this moment? What does this moment represent to you?
We're sitting here together. That's really what it's about. And us talking about putting our energies together, pushing more energies out. Yes, all these old contacts from Intel, from banking, from all over have been contacting me, and I get that the reevaluations and the new launch of the financial system aren't working. and that they want some help. And so what I did was I looked to see, and I've actually been watching Sacha since the first time that Nanako and you guys contacted me. I've been watching to see who the them and the us are all sort of paying energy into. Where do they resonate? Where are they magnetized to? And Sacha, you've done such a beautiful job at centralizing, and they've done a beautiful job at centralizing. And so I could see where certain folks, certain frequencies are drawn to this particular area over here. And then I see over here. And the way that it was going to work out in certain agendas was to create an illusory, unseen, third party to join the us and the them. So what I'm saying is why don't we just join us and them together as one, which is what we already all are. So I'm coming out in a way, yes, that I'm not terribly comfortable with, but it's really helped to just sit and be able to focus on you in your chair there. To not have to worry about video, but I want people to see things that they haven't seen before, so I've got to start with me. And if everyone starts with themselves, being self-responsible, self-aware, then we can move forward. So I am watching them, the proverbial them, and Sacha, you magnetize really well. And so I'm here to join hands.
Thank you, Heather. And thank you for coming out of the closet. And you're flanked by two goddesses, so you've got some serious support. And you got our warrior in the front there, Brian. Yeah, this is very, very exciting. And again, I can't wait to speak with Greg Paul and Wolfgang and Jean Marie and my beautiful team. I'm their team, they're my team. We're just completely aligned and cohered to everything that I'm hearing from you guys. So yeah, good. Let's do some deep plumbing.
Awesome.
Lovely. We'll let you know as soon as this we will let you know as soon as this is published and made. And
Good.
it's been a pleasure.
And I'm going to Southeast Asia next week for about a month. Also filming there, and then I was planning to come back to Europe, and then I'm planning to come on to Morocco. So see you sooner rather than later. Yeah.
We'll have a time.
I'll have coffee.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you.
Okay. Can I end with a quote that I used to promote the show? For me personally, limitations live only in our minds. But if we use our imaginations, our possibilities become limitless. Good quote for the Collective Imagination Show. Yeah.
Shanti,
Namaste and blessings to you, Sacha. Thank you, man. A pleasure as always. It's been too long. Let's not make it so long again before next rendezvous.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
We love
Easy.
you, man.
Love you.
Be well. Namaste.